Good morning, hello, good afternoon. Don't know if I have any other ones. Welcome to the Sea Inside. Been a long gap between this one and the last one. So I wanted to start this episode by giving you a bit of a life update, a little bit of news. So I've been really busy. Been really busy living and doing, and I think that's the important part for any of us, is that we live our lives consciously and pay attention to what we're spending time with, what we're spending time for, and to and that's what I've been doing. You know, there were some things that needed to get done, so I needed to go for an MRI that was expedited by my consultant. So expedited means it was pulled forward, so I haven't had to wait. Literally within a month of getting a letter to say that they had sought a second opinion from a multidisciplinary team, and the multidisciplinary team had come to the conclusion between two MDTs, first opinion and second opinion, I had had another brain hemorrhage at some point during 2020. Did I not? Who knows? The thing with living with cavernoma is they don't only leak externally, they can leak internally. So definitely in August, September, I had some challenges of balance. Okay, so they affected my knee healing. But prior to that, my facial spasming started. So is there something different, like Parkinson's, for example? Is it the side effect that I have, the hypertrophic liver degeneration, or is it a bleed of one of my cavernomas? So they wanted to put some more contrast into me, which is not fun. For any of you that have had contrast, you get a lovely cannula in your arm. Say hello, Pusheen, my Pusheen tattoo. And they do a series of scans, and then they pull you out, put the contrast in, and then put you back in. Whee! Put you back in for about 8 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes. Probably ends up being about a quarter of an hour by the time they get the programs loaded into the sequencer. They run the sequence, they get the next sequence programmed in, and they run that, and then they pull you out. So I went in at 4 o'clock. The wonderful thing about COVID is that hospitals don't run behind, or at least any of the rooms that I have had to attend haven't run behind. In fact, they can run early. So that is a really positive thing, and something that I'm able to take away from COVID. The negative thing about that is that you can't have anyone to go with you, and I have to go from Swansea to Cardiff for my scans. The reason for that is because the software that Swansea use, Swansea Abertawe NHS Trust use, and Cardiff University Hospital are two different ones. Yeah, so things don't get sent easily or seen straight away. And the trust that has the imaging done owns them. So it means that my consultant can have all of my place, all of my scans, all of my lovely internal photos in one place. It makes it much easier when he's booking on to the multidisciplinary team, because it's not just him that makes the decision. Okay, he goes and consults with another 5 or 6 neurosurgeon consultants and neurophysicists, people from the anaesthetics, so anesthesiology consultant, lots of different consultants, and the OT, the physiotherapist, the special neuro nurses that they have, who are amazing. I have to say that the neuro nurses are just outstanding. They not just the ones that work on the high dependency unit and who work on the neurosurgical ward, but the actual specialist ones, so the outreach ones, and the one who I can phone up and say, oh, I fell over and this and this, and she can speak to the consultant and they will, even during COVID, make the miracles happen if they need to. So all this was done pretty quickly. Within a month, I had a letter for an appointment. So do you know what? That's really good. And also quite serious, because it means I had another brain bleed, possibly, without going into hospital, and without any external support. Just had it at home, same as I did my first one, and still went to work because I was working at the time. And I feel quite bitter about that. Something I'm still working through, because I really needed support from the agency who I was working for, and I just didn't get any, because you know what I mean, you don't have an oncologist, and you don't have, because that's not their specialty, and because people don't usually encounter brain injuries or capnomas or neurological injuries. They don't know how to support, and they don't realise that symptoms vary a great deal. I think I really learned that by going to see the ophthalmologist, who's the eye doctor. So the last time I had my eyes tested, they weren't too bad. They had deteriorated in terms of, not in terms of my eyesight, but in terms of my nystagma that I have, because they move at different rates constantly. That had deteriorated, and I was quite stressed about going to see the consultant, and they tested me, the ophthalmology consultant, and an ophthalmologist at the hospital gave me an eye test a few days later, and was like really staggered at the differences in the results, because I was a lot more stressed. I'd had a full day's work in between having my eyes tested, so I'd had a day off to have my eyes tested. All these things really add up. So, and I think what that's taught me is the beauty of self-practice. I will come back to the point of all this pre-log at some point now, pretty much. So I will have edited this rambling together with an interview that I did quite a while back now with Maya Scott Mitchell. I don't really know how to describe Maya. just love Maya completely unconditionally, because I think her and another lady called Hannah are the first people who I've really let know me. Gosh. All of me. Completely. And I know they won't try and fix me. That's for me to do, and for me to look at constantly. And my version of fixed is not necessarily your version of fixed. And that's the same with everyone's opinions. Yeah, so it means a lot to me, this interview. A lot that I could spend half an hour, 45 minutes in the presence of such beauty and grace, and allow me to ask them questions. You know, I don't know, there are lots of synchronicities between us, and I just accept her and love her completely. Gosh. Oh. Anyway, I think you'll see in this interview how, as facilitators and people, we are just the same as everyone else. We all have a history, we all have past, we all have presence, and when we step into our presence and feel within ourselves, we let go of resistance and align. And Sharon with AY from the Breath of Business. If you look up Breath of Business on Facebook or Google, you'll get a hit. Put it beautifully, because someone had put it to her. So this happened this week, and I think that's what we talk about a lot in this interview, is what about if you didn't plant seeds? What about if the seed you planted was yourself? And you just grew yourself. And I think that's exactly what I'm trying to say when I say, before you make the list, before you turn up to do the work starts with you, with your feeling. Just take a breath to come to presence with yourself. Any breath. Doesn't have to be nostril, doesn't have to be mouth, it doesn't have to be a certain count. Yeah, you will find your rhythm. You'll find, and in that rhythm, you'll find you and your vulnerability. So for all the support, I wasn't given. I just let that go and trust that there is a bigger plan for me. And it doesn't have a God belief. It has a presence, an enduring belief and faith that I'm actually exactly where I'm supposed to be, even in the horrible moments, even in the moments just when I get there to the MRI and I say, we're doing contrast today. And the radiologist says to me, yeah, we're doing contrast today. And I go, oh shit. And my stomach goes, my adrenaline pumps all around my body, and I just want to run. Walking down the corridor towards that machine, all I want to do is run. All I do is say, stay here, breathe. Next step, breathe. Next step, breathe. Next step, breathe. And here we are a week later. Still haven't got the results, but we're a week on down the line, and I have to say, for 55 minutes I spent in the tube, because I was in there 55 minutes, which is a long time. If you had an MRI, you haven't been in any sort of tube like that, and because it's my head, you have to have a mask on and things shoved down the side and earplugs. It's a long time. They came and they said to me, can we just run an extra couple of scans, because we've got a tech here today and you've been such a good patient, you've been absolutely fantastic, so if you're up for it, can we do a couple of experimental sequences on you? So they did a couple of experimental sequences on me, not because they found anything, but purely because they had a tech there, and it's a teaching hospital, and they very rarely get to teach them. You know, they wait for an ideal patient, and it's not always like that. I just happened to have some beautiful people taking a breath with me, my Breathwork family, particularly Maya and Ben, who literally sent messages just as I was about to go in. Timing could not be more perfect. So, enjoy this interview, and I'll see you on the next See Inside. There's much love for you here. Coming back to the See Inside podcast, and I am delighted to welcome my fellow Breathwork facilitator and feels like Breathwork sister, Mia Scott, who lives in Derbyshire. Welcome.
Thanks, Kath.
That's okay. Just really, really pleased to have you here. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on. What I really want to do is sort of connect with people and demystify this this image that breathwork, or that breath workers, or the people that work in the complementary health field are all as completely crazy as I am. yeah. So that's one of the things I wanted to do, and something that I'm really passionate about is about self-practice and consistency. So I'd like to ask you, you know, you're a mum, you've got lots going on in your life. What's the structure of your day, and how does self-practice fit in?
Yeah, well, I'm learning more and more that I'm not particularly good at practicing what I preach. So obviously, as a holistic therapist, I spend all my time telling people what they should be doing in the day and to help themselves. But it's been a really long journey for me to get to the point where I feel like I actually am really taking care of myself. Even now I have to check in, like today I've realised I've been spending way too much time on my laptop over the last few weeks, which is not something I usually do. But just got lots of things that have ended up taking me on screen. And yeah, I just feel like I'm starting to suffer from it now. My back is killing me, and I'm just not used to sitting over a laptop. So I did have to, even though I've got loads still left to do today, I did have to check in with myself this morning and say, you need to take a step back today and just, you know, move. I'm just been moving my body. So before this, I did a workout this morning when I got back from dropping the kids off from school. I'm going to do a breathwork session later with Duncan, who was on last week with you.
Yep.
Um,
The heart is not a pump.
yeah. And I'll probably try and do a bit of yoga later. I just really feel like my body just really needs to move and stretch, and so I'm learning more to kind of feel into and just listen to my body day to day and what it needs. So yeah, day to day, obviously, so I've got 2 young children that get up at the crack of dawn.
Really?
Yeah, I've got early risers.
Oh no.
So yeah, so I do try and do just 5 or 10 minutes of heart coherence breathing in the morning before I get up. Sometimes I just literally manage like 10 rounds, but it's something. And I just think, 5 minutes in the morning is better than nothing. And I really feel like that really helps me.
It's a way of
So,
bringing presence into your day.
yeah,
And a really fantastic foundation
yeah.
to start your day from.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really guilty of waking up and grabbing my phone as soon as I open my eyes. So now I'm trying to, before I do that, I just check in and I'm like, how do I feel? What do I need today? And then I just do 5 minutes of breath work before I get out of bed. So I don't even get up before I do it. I do it whilst I'm still lying there. Um, I am really big on breakfast. So I do like to be really mindful with my breakfast. So I like to make it quite ritualistic, I guess. I like to make it really colourful and really nutritious, and I love to really enjoy breakfast. So even if lunch is really rushed, I mean, I try to eat really healthily anyway, but even if lunch and dinner are a little bit manic, I try and make sure breakfast I'm mindfully eat my breakfast and take my time with it.
It always looks like I'm always so envious when you post pictures of your breakfast. Because I'm not a huge food porn, as it were, surfer on Instagram or anywhere. However, it always looks really tasty. And I just think, props to you, because it takes a lot of patience to do that. And that in itself is a very mindful exercise. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then obviously, you've got a child, so you know what school runs are like. So the mornings are quite chaotic and stressful, to be honest. Probably the most stressful part of the day, actually, getting them all out of the house on time. And I do childmind as well, so I quite often have other children here as well that aren't mine. So I have to get them all out the door on time.
wow.
So yeah, and just enjoying a cup of tea with no distractions. So just putting my phone down, making a cup of tea, and just literally just sitting with the tea. And I know it sounds like a really little thing, but actually it's really good practice, because I think a lot of us grab a cup of tea and we drink it whilst we're doing other things. We let it go cold, or we're scrolling through our phone whilst we're drinking it, or we're talking to someone, we're just distracted. So just literally sitting with your cup of tea, and just being mindful again of that.
It's a really big, I didn't really think about it until I checked in with until I checked it with Colin, someone, a friend of mine, who's also, I would say, been a mentor to me as well for the last decade or so. And I said, I have to really think about putting my finger in the handle of the cup, lifting the cup, holding the cup, transporting the cup. Drinking a cup of tea is quite a big thing, and I didn't realize how much of a mindful exercise it was. So I think it's really to your credit, and really to the listeners' benefit, that they can hear that people say they don't have time, but just an everyday something, just bringing that conscious presence to it means that you can check in.
Yeah. And I mean, like I say to my clients, because they quite often say, I don't have time to meditate, or I don't have time to do any breathing or check in with myself. And just say, well, if you did it just whilst you're cleaning your teeth, you clean your teeth twice a day. I mean, I know,
absolutely.
you know, you're not going to stand there for ages cleaning your teeth, but that's a few minutes twice a day where you could just
Yeah.
slow down and just connect with yourself, you know, and check in with yourself. So there are moments throughout the day where we can definitely make space for that. But yeah, no, I went to a tea ceremony a few years ago as well, and it was an
Wow.
absolutely beautiful experience. And obviously, that is all about smelling the tea, you know, feeling the warmth of the tea, just really appreciating the tea, and just bringing in all of the senses. You know, how does it smell? How does it feel? How does it taste? And even just drinking it in like a really nice mug that you love. You know, just making
Absolutely.
it like a little, almost like a little ceremony in the
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, I try and do that every day. It probably is the only warm cup of tea I get all day because then I'm rushing about. But and then day to day, most nights I do have a cold shower, which people are like, "What?" Not for long, not for long at all. But I just turn the shower on cold at the end for a minute or so. And I really feel that has made a massive difference to how I feel.
Okay.
So I've only just started really getting into cold therapy. But I had my first ice bath last weekend, which I think you saw.
That looks
And
pretty powerful.
weirdly, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But that's a really big thing because cold water has always been my biggest like fear. So when I was
Okay.
a child, I passed out a couple of times in cold water and naturally found out a year or so ago that my body temperature is quite low. So I just do really feel the cold. And a couple of times actually on a school trip, we went gorge walking and I jumped in and pretty much nearly passed out from the cold. So I've
Okay.
always been really fearful of cold, and it's always been something I've really avoided. And then I kind of got into Wim Hof a couple of years ago. So that's sort of introduced me to the whole concept of cold therapy and how it's good for your health and your immune system and everything. So yeah, so I've just slowly been kind of building up my resilience to it and just being less fearful of it, I guess. So yeah, it was quite a big moment for me last week. I was only in there for 2 minutes, but we had 4 bags of ice in there, and
It
and
was
actually
cold.
it was really cold. And actually, I coped. You won't mind me saying, I coped much better with it than my husband. Well, but I am crediting the breath for that
Right.
because I breathed through it and
Yeah.
felt very in the zone because I was
Oh, I
breathing.
love it. I
So
love it. I love it. I love it. I could just, it's just amazing. I don't practice it as often as I could. I wouldn't say as I'd like to, but as often as I could because it has to be contained.
yeah,
I can't really go wild swimming unless someone goes with me because of like the pebbles down or the
yeah.
environment at the side. But I absolutely love ice baths.
Mm.
Yeah, or just cold water just on a Saturday afternoon. I will draw myself a cold bath
Mm.
and just lie in there. I think it's got real nervous system thing for me
Mm.
because I've got a disease of the nervous system. Um, it just freaks it all down. It just
Mm.
makes me feel really connected, and I have found that breath has put
Mm.
another layer on top of that. So
Yeah,
that's wonderful to think that you just breathe through it. Two
yeah.
months is incredible. It's a really long time, you
Yeah,
know.
well, to be honest, I was in there and it was my husband's like, you need to get out now because I think you have to gradually, they say, don't you, when you start doing it, that really you should start off just with 1 or 2 minutes and just get
Yeah.
your body used to it. So over time, you can obviously build that up. But yeah, so yeah, just did the 2 minutes. So might make it a monthly thing or something. I don't know. But yeah, so
Did
that's
he
something.
did he go in as well?
He went in after me, yeah. So I was like, I'll
Yeah.
go in first. And then he went in and was a little bit more like, ooh, struggled a little bit with it.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I just said to him, you know, I was talking him through the breath whilst he was
Okay.
in there. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it reminded me a little bit of my first experience of breath work and how powerful it was when I had my first child.
Okay.
when I was in labour. So I did a hypnobirthing session,
Right.
and they brought a bit of breath work into that. Not lots, just a couple of breathing techniques to use. And I started practicing it a lot, like whilst I was pregnant, and just really connecting to my breath. And I went through the whole labour just using my breath. And it was such a beautiful experience. I felt almost euphoric at times. But I was just in a different place. And when I was in the ice bath, it kind of reminded me a little bit of that, just taking
Okay.
yourself off into this different zone and just really connecting with your body and trusting your body. And, so yeah. But what else do I do day to day? I'd say that's probably, I move my body every single day. I'm a bit of an exercise junkie, really. I have to check in with myself again with that sometimes, because it got to the point where I wasn't probably resting enough. So I do make sure now that I have like 2 days a week where I don't do anything really other than just a little walk.
Yeah.
Um,
Totally
but,
associate with that.
yeah, it is
Yeah.
addictive. It's so addictive.
It is. It is. I haven't really exercised now for about what's it, 2017, 20, like 3.5, 4 years. Like what I would say. I mean, I have, but it's much more functional. Yeah, much more preserving of body and timing around breath and movement. But it took me a very long time to get there. Before that, I was hopelessly addicted. Yeah. So
Yeah, and I mean that's changed as well. I've mixed that up because my husband does a lot. Well, he does CrossFit, and we now have weights at home. So for me, I've come from a background of doing lots of high intensity exercise. So the idea of just lifting weights, I was like, but this isn't a workout because my heart's not pounding, I'm not like sweating. And he's like, it's still a workout.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm really mixing things up at the moment. I'm really enjoying it. So I run once or twice a week, and then I do a weight session once a week, and then a bit of HIIT as well, a bit of high intensity stuff. And I always make room for at least one session of yoga a week as well. I've practiced yoga for forever, to be honest.
Yeah.
And that's really a meditation for me as well.
Absolutely.
When you're working out, you are just focusing on what you're doing in that moment. It makes you so present, and again, you're just connecting to your body again, how your body's feeling. And and running as well is so good for your head, for clearing your head.
Yep.
So that to me, I say to people, I think people get really scared by the word meditation, and they think it really is.
Yeah, I agree. It can be quite intimidating. Like
Yeah.
people have this really perceived idea of what it is. And certainly I really try to teach that it could be anything. Anything
Yeah.
can be meditative. And it wasn't until I started to take that approach that I realized absolutely that's what I did with exercise.
Yeah.
I didn't just use it to disassociate, I also used it to be present, and I was a swimmer before that, and certainly worked with breath and just going up and down the lanes and up and down the lanes and up and down the lanes is so meditative, and also breath orientated as a foundation.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where my journey with breath began, actually. Swimming. You don't think about that. You don't think about where it began, but I think it just makes you aware of your internal organs and your muscles as well. People don't like to think about it. So
yeah, and then I'd say day to day, the only other thing I do is I always get outside, if I can, because for me nature is massively therapeutic. So I'm lucky I live in the Peak District, so I'm not too far from hills and greenery. So so just try and I make myself walk as well to pick the kids up from school every day. I could drive, but I have sort of made myself walk, because I then get at least that 20 minutes or so a day where I'm just outside.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, and I have noticed with that, it wasn't until I started running a mindfulness course a while ago for some clients. I was telling them, next time you go for a walk, just, really look at your surroundings, really take in everything you can see, and notice, and I noticed all these things. I noticed a windmill on a hill, and I literally must have walked past that thousands of times on the school runs and never even seen it, because I was just powering to school and back and just not noticing anything. So just that simple act of bringing awareness to where you are, and just really looking at everything around you, and that's again such a simple thing to do, but so effective. So yeah, gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but
No, that's totally, that's, I think that's the message that I really want to spread with this connection, is the fact that everybody, we say so much these days, so you're unique and you're enough, but people still have a preconceived idea of what that should look like for them. Yeah. And it's not until you stop thinking, and even if you're moving, even just observing, and with that inhale and with the exhale, can bring such depth, and just connection to presence. So that's what I really wanted to do. I really wanted to show with this podcast the fact that it's completely different for everyone. You started at the top of the conversation by saying that you weren't very you don't actually practice that much. But you practice all the time.
It's true.
It's such an integrated part of your life now, that even though you maybe find you have to be mindful and disciplined with yourself, in terms of setting time aside, the rest of the time you're always present and moving consciously.
It's so true.
That's beautiful. So it's no wonder that people are naturally attracted to coming to see you, for breathworks and for meditations as well. So is that always been the case, or
with my self-care,
or do you find that breath work has helped, is added another dimension, or another level? Mentioned leveling up last week. Is it helped that leveling up?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I was really deeply unhappy as a teenager. I had a really turbulent kind of teenage, early 20 years where I didn't really take care of myself very well, and I was really unhappy. And then I kind of had started adopting more of a holistic approach to my life, healing my relationship with food as well, because I didn't used to eat very well, have a very good relationship with food. So started beginning to kind of, really just started to respect my body more, So rather than counting calories and all that kind of stuff, I was just looking at what was in the food that was going to make me strong and healthy and really nourish me. And so I'd say that's where it started. And then I discovered running and exercise. So then I became, like I said, a little bit addicted to it, I suppose. But I started to just really want to take care of my body and just love it, and I was just beginning to kind of discover how amazing the body is, really, because we just don't think about it, do we? But all of these different systems of the body all working together every day, it's an absolute miracle. So that's where it started, and it kind of grew from there. And I just started trying to take a really natural approach to my well-being, and my mental health especially, and found it really worked. So that's what inspired me to then set up my own business and just lead from the heart, just do something that I really felt passionate about. And I've always worked caring for people in some ways. They've always had a supportive role, mainly worked with children with learning difficulties, but I've always had that instinct to want to help people, I guess, or support them and look after them. So I thought, well, this I'll still be doing that with this kind of work.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I trained to be a meditation teacher a couple of years ago. And like I said, I've been practicing yoga for a long time, but I never really felt fully present. It's hard to explain. It always felt like there was something missing. And then I went to my first conscious connected breathwork session, and it was like all the pieces just fell into place and something just clicked. And I lay there. I didn't have a massive release or anything like that, but I just lay there at the end and I felt so present. That's the only way I can describe it. So connected to my body, so in touch with myself, and really blissed out. And I thought, wow, this is so powerful, and this is what I've been looking for. This is the missing piece. So yeah, that's what started me off, and then I've just become obsessed with breath ever since. Yeah, and now obviously I'm using it with clients as well.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
You mentioned that, and we talked about briefly the fact that there seems to be people are quite intimidated by the word meditation. How have people reacted when you've talked about breath work?
I still think that there's a lot of people who really don't know what it is. I still feel like I have to remind myself sometimes that I am in this little breathwork bubble where lots of the people around me that I choose to spend time with and that I connect with also work with the breath or are practicing breathwork and know what it is. And sometimes I have to remind myself that outside of that, it's still really an area that a lot of people don't really understand or don't know what it is. So I think, yeah, I can be met sometimes with, well, what's that? Yeah. And it's such a difficult thing to explain to people, isn't it, as well, quickly, what it is.
Yeah, it is. It's such a lot of dimensions to it.
So many dimensions, and it's so, and someone just goes, well, what's breath work? Oh, it's the hardest question to answer, because you just think, oh, I could go off on so many different tangents with this, because the breath is everything.
It is. I feel there's this little voice in my head which is saying, oh, you should go back and revisit your elevator pitches. And I'm quite interested. That's a elevator pitch is like I think it was it 60 seconds or 90 seconds that we did at the very beginning of our breathwork training course, where we just, I don't know, literally imagined that someone walked into a lift and said, oh, what's breathwork then? And we just had to talk for like a minute or 90 seconds. And yeah, I agree with you. I still find that so difficult, because it's like, well, it's everything, but it's nothing at the same time. It's a very difficult one. And people are very different. People who approach you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the way you describe it is very much, it depends who you're talking to as to how you kind of explain it to them, I think, because everyone can get something slightly different from it, and that's why it's so magical. And I'm seeing that now with clients, the different responses to it, the different reasons why they want to explore it. It's just endless, the possibilities. So it's so varied. I've had, I think in one week I had a women's rugby team come and breathe with me. And then I also worked with a little girl who had anxiety. And then I had a male client that came to me who had come to me because he was suffering with depression. So it's so varied, and that's why I love it, because it's just so interesting as well and fascinating for me as a facilitator.
And even what I find is, even as a facilitator, and I'm holding people, so they're absolutely, whether they realize it consciously, to start with, being accountable for themselves, I learned so much. Yeah. And that it's such a two-way healing. And yet I don't do anything for them. They do all the work themselves. There's just so much energy that comes with it. It's so powerful and so strong, and so tangible and real, because it comes from a real organism, you know, because of our cells and our nervous systems, whichever one you're looking at. I just really find it just can apply to everything. Does your partner apply it to his workouts of the day?
Yeah, he's trying to. I do feed him little bits, but yeah, he was the other day, actually went for a run. He was trying to breathe through his nose rather than his mouth, which is something I'm still
a difficult one. Yeah,
still trying to do myself with running. It's just, yeah, it'll get there, but yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Train yourself to breathe through the nose when you're exercising. But yeah, it's just always such an honor, like, to do something that you just absolutely love, and you just, like you say, when you're holding space for someone and they're there with you, you just feel so much gratitude that they're there with you, you know, and they're doing all the work. That's what I always say to them.
Yeah.
Always make sure that I highlight that this isn't me doing anything. I'm holding space for you, and creating this container for you to feel safe, where you can just feel whatever you need to feel and just be as you are. You know, how often do we in life get the chance to just simply be, you know, without trying to pretend to be someone else, or swallowing our emotions down, or trying to fit in what we think people want us to be. And I just feel within a breathwork session, you are just free. You know, it's just you're just given that time to just be free and to just feel it all. That they're doing the work, or the breath is doing the work, and they're doing their own, they're healing themselves. So, you know, it's a really empowering thing as well for them, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes time to integrate that as well. And I imagine, well, I don't just imagine, but I know from my breathwork sessions that 6 months later, something will present itself to me. Yeah, another aspect of a breathwork session, or someone's words that someone has cued or held me with or guided me with, you know, come to my mind, and it's just comes to my mind to get me to connect with myself.
Yeah, completely. It's like a peeling away of layers, isn't it? Each time you do a breathwork session. And I had a client this week that has had some really big breakthroughs previously, and this week not a lot happened. And I think he was a little bit like, oh, why has nothing happened, you know? And I was like, you know, that it doesn't have to. You know, I said, tomorrow, a week later, you might find that something has clicked, or you've had, you know, you'll be something when in your mind will be clarified, or do you know what I mean? It's like that. So it has, like you said, you know, this healing process happens after the breath work itself as well. And for me, myself, like with my own practice over the last year or so, I just feel like it's just been this peeling away of layers, you know. Sometimes it's been really brutal and really difficult, and other times really empowering and amazing and beautiful. So, you know, just like life itself, isn't it, really?
No, absolutely, it is. And I think to be able to consciously connect with life is so meaningful, you know. It means you're actually really here, you know, while you're here, because, you know, everyone's going to die. And it's it brings a lot of gratitude. So thank you for coming to talk to us this morning. Where can people find you, Maya?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook and Instagram. So my business name is Selenite Wellbeing. So Yeah, you can, and I'd offer sessions in person and online. And at the moment, I'm probably having about 50-50 of online and in-person clients. So that's really lovely. And I think the other amazing thing about breathwork is it's just as powerful online. You know,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
like some of my personal, where I've had the biggest breakthroughs myself have been on online sessions.
Okay.
So I think that's the other wonderful thing about it as well, is you don't necessarily have to be in the same room with someone to be able to facilitate them and hold them through a session. So
No, energy is energy, you know.
energy is energy, yeah.
uh,
Yeah,
it's so difficult to explain that to people,
it is, yeah.
but even from a NASA science, even from that view, it's still tangible and it's still real, even if you can't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you start working with it and you start doing distance stuff and you start working on Zoom, it's amazing. You learn to pick up on things and to feel things. So
Yeah.
and are you having a retreat later on in the year?
Yeah, so yeah, I've just organised my first women's retreat. So it's going to be in the Peak District. So we're glamping, so we're in yurts, 3 days of lots of different things, but obviously lots of breath work included. But yeah, I've teamed up with another holistic therapist, Alina, so she'll be co-hosting with me. So yeah, we're really nervous, excited. It was a really spontaneous thing. Didn't really have any intentions of doing it, and I thought, you know what, I really miss connecting with other women, over the last year as well. I'm in an all-male household as well, so I just feel like I really miss being with other women and connecting with them, and I feel like we just have so much to heal from as well. So I was like, let's just find somewhere beautiful where we can just all connect with each other and do some healing if we want to. You can just come and chill out if you want, but the opportunity there is to go deeper if you want to. So
It was beautiful. And so it's selenite well-being.
yes,
right?
yeah. Selenite is a crystal for anyone that's, because I get asked that quite a lot. What's
Okay.
your?
No, I know. Does it
I
have
know
any
you. Yeah, I know
particular
you
have
know.
any particular qualities to it?
It's a beautiful crystal to use when you're meditating or when you're trying to connect with yourself. So it's really creates a really peaceful, tranquil kind of space and energy. So I thought that's what I want to do with my business. That's what I want to do with my work. So, and I've been obsessed. Crystals was actually really where it all started, because as a child I collected crystals and was a bit obsessed with them. So yeah, that's why it's selenite.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm just going to start recording. Bing.